I suppose it all depends on your point of view and your perspective, really. To our 3 grandchildren, aged 6 to 12, it was simply a party, a chance to race around in new surroundings and enjoy themselves. To those who were our daughters, it was an amazement that their parents had lived so long. And to us, as we celebrated our golden wedding last week, it was a moment of joy and reflection, amazement and thanks. So it does depend upon your perspective. But how do we understand that? For the Samaritan, it was a perspective of being a foreigner, but amongst a group of outcasts already. For the lepers were kept out of society and they weren't allowed into it. They kept their distance. And so it was from a distance that they called to Jesus and said, "Lord, have mercy on us." He didn't say, "I will." He just said, "Go and show yourselves to the priests." He knew what was going to happen to them. Perhaps they did, perhaps they didn't. Did they have faith that he would cure them? Who knows? But the 10 of them went off, and as we know, one of them returned and gave thanks to God and fell at the knees of Christ and thanked him. But how do we understand that in our modern context? Not taking things for granted, but giving thanks. This week I've had occasion to be in touch with somebody who happened to be at the lying-in state of Her late Majesty the Queen. I have permission to quote her, and she sent me a very long email, and I'm going to quote it more or less in full. She's on crutches and can't be with us, but is actually a member of our congregation. And I just think that the perspective of not seeing it from a distance on a television screen, but being there, makes all the difference, in the same sort of way as we try to think ourselves into the context of being amongst those 10 lepers. We read it from a distance of however many thousands of years it now is, but it's very different from being there at the moment that it happens. And so, this lady wrote to me and said, "It's still hard to put into words an experience like no other. It was a huge privilege to have had that opportunity, and a few hours of discomfort and hardship was nothing really. It was profoundly moving, and the atmosphere when you made it into Westminster Hall was overwhelmingly intense." Overwhelmingly intense. Is that what the Samaritan felt as he came back into Jesus' presence? Probably. For not only had he been healed, but he'd been healed by someone that he had no right to expect it from. And there was something remarkable about this man. This person towards whom he was moving, this Son of God, whether or not he could acknowledge it at the moment. And notice the words that Jesus says to him at the end. "Go, your faith has made you well." The narrative continues. And when it was finally your moment to pause in front of the coffin and give thanks, to me, it felt that you were there on your own, alone with your thoughts. No talking, no mobile phones, even the shuffling of feet silenced by the carpets covering the stone floor. All the while, the Queen's coffin, complete with crown, orb and sceptre, being fiercely guarded with such dignified ceremony and solemnity. In some ways, it was a simple thing to do for the Samaritan to prostrate himself in front of Christ. But what courage it took to do it. In that moment, was the Samaritan aware of anything else? Probably not. Even the sounds of nature around him would have disappeared into the background, a kind of filter that allowed him to concentrate simply on this remarkable person before him, this Jesus, to whom he now wanted to give praise and thanks. It should be like that for us when we come to receive communion. Sometimes, though, it's just something we do. But it should be a moment of intensity, remembering what it is Christ has done for us. A moment when, as we prepare for it, we shut out all else. Everything else disappears, and we are alone with Christ. The narrative continues again. Why was I there? I wanted to give thanks for the Queen keeping the promises she made on her accession at such a young age. Thanks for her Christian faith and witness. Thanks for a sometimes challenging and unenviable job well done, and for her incredible service. Faith is not something just for a moment. It's for a lifetime. And whether we discover it early or we discover it late in life, it's for whatever life remains to us. A bishop of Jerusalem wrote a book. I have to say that the title is much better than the book. The title of which is Entry into Life. And for the Christian, that's what death and dying is. It is an end of a sort, an end of our earthly life, and we're sorry to leave it behind. But what is to come is infinitely richer, infinitely deeper. And when the Queen died and came to her final moments, none of us will know what went through her mind or her heart, but all the evidence seems to suggest that faith would have been at the centre of the experience. And for us too, faith needs to remain at the centre. If we're not sure that we have it yet, all we have to do is ask. And it's very simple. Jesus responds to us just as he said to the Samaritan, "Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well."